Hey guys, we are back updating the power rankings for Big Brother 25 during week 7, and wow, just wow. It just goes to show how much can change in a week. Heck, less than 24 hours after I recorded the video, we saw the house flip. We saw the target shift. We saw pretty much the power structure that we have come to see over the course of this pre-jury completely flip on its head to where this power ranking is going to feel quite a bit different now than what it was even a week ago. And through that, a lot of what I said in last week's video got outdated pretty quickly, but that's just the way things go. And at the end of the day, it was still an incredible week of TV and an incredible week of Big Brother. But with all that out of the way, we have 12 players to talk about, and let's not waste any more time. Let's get right into the video. So starting off at number 12, we have the latest boot from the season, and here we have Izzy. And I'd say that out of all the takes that I've had on this season, this is probably the one that has aged the poorest, where at the time that I recorded, it still felt like the target was going to be Izzy, where even though Jared had already done quite a bit of damage in terms of him lying and people figuring it out, I still thought that the target was going to remain on Felicia, and through that Izzy would stay. But then, less than 24 hours after I recorded the video, we saw everything fall apart. We saw Cam telling Felicia that she didn't have the votes to stay. You have Cam really believing everything that America had told him about Jared. We saw conversations taking place that ultimately resulted in this new side forming in order to take out Izzy. And admittedly, Izzy herself did not play this round particularly well, where she told Corey to his face that she would have put up America next had she won HOH. And through her continued loyalty to the Cerise side, including with Jared, it just made it very clear to the likes of Corey that she would always choose Jared over him. And that in general, she was never going to play self-interestedly in order to take a shot at the Cerise side, which obviously helped facilitate this flip. But at the end of the day, I still feel like her boot came through a number of things that were obviously outside of her control, namely through Jared's poor play, and with Cerie being separated from the rest of the house for 2 days, where she was unable to talk game, it just allowed Jared to cause so much damage that it just opened things up for this flip to happen. So I think through that, Izzy also got a bit unlucky. So I still think Izzy on the whole played a weird game, and one that's going to be hard to assess when it comes time for the player ranking, where for a lot of the pre-jury, she was part of the majority alliance. She was within the core of the Cerise side, and she was also one of the bigger sources of why the gameplay was so crazy, where she would just run around the house and give all this information and just allow these supposed flips to happen. And obviously you have that to consider. I feel like even before the flip, she was still going to be in a good position, even though she probably wasn't going to be in a winning position by the end of it. But ultimately, I feel like her inability to play self-interestedly and her continued loyalty to the Cerise side throughout a lot of it really did her in by the end of it. And I feel like this week where she goes home was in some ways the culmination of a lot of her alliance's sloppy gameplay, like taking out Heisem, voting out Jag 10-0, taking out Red even. I feel like those things also contributed to her downfall, even though she wasn't the only one at fault here. So, but at the end of the day, she is out of the game now. She falls 9 spots from where she was last week, but I just had to eat that. But because of that, she is here at number 12. And with that, there are 11 players left in the game to talk about. And as usual, I'll be ranking them based on how likely I think they are to win based on the current position. And this is a bit of an interesting week, as for one, we got the announcement from Julie that the jury has not started yet, that they're going back to the old school seasons where jury started at 9, final 2, jury is 7. So obviously the people that go out this week are going to be pre-jury. But the bigger news is that this Thursday will be a double eviction. And I think that also weighs into these rankings a bit, where obviously a lot of who's going to be going out next will depend on who wins that HOH on Thursday night, which I'll be streaming, of course. But with all that said, starting off at number 11, we have the person most likely to be evicted on Thursday night, and here we have Cameron. And I guess this is one thing that didn't really change from last week, where Cameron was still probably the biggest target in the house. Most people were aiming to take him out first, where even though Jared was already starting to be a pretty massive target, I think people recognized that Cam had to be taken out first, especially with him being the outgoing HOH and with the odds still being in their favor to potentially backdoor him. Now, obviously, Cam was picked for the veto, and he actually came pretty close to winning, coming just 40 seconds behind Jag, the eventual winner, but ultimately he came up short. And to be fair, Cameron did try to make some interesting pitches here, but at the end of the day, it just wasn't enough. His target was way too big by that point, and he's obviously backdoored at this point, and he's probably going to go home. So obviously that's not particularly great, and I feel like the game has already moved on from him, where there isn't really any consideration of flipping the vote to keep him. Really, he has dug his own grave. He's going home on Thursday. Not too much to say. He's here at number 11. Now we're moving on to number 10, and we have the person that is the most likely to walk out the door alongside Cameron on Thursday night, and here we have Jared. And there's obviously a lot to say about Jared here, where really so much of his fall from grace is his own fault, where he was obviously found out for lying. He obviously got into that massive fight with Corey after he was exposed for lying to them about saying that Jag was the one that leaked the plan to them, which obviously made Jared look very bad. And coming into this week, he was the second most likely target behind Cameron, where had Cameron won the veto, there was a very good chance that he could have been the target there, but obviously that didn't quite happen. But at this point, most of the house is going after him. I mean, so many people are going to target him this week coming into the double eviction. And I feel like with each passing day, his chances are getting worse and worse. Where at first it seemed like a lot of the bigger competitors on the other side, people like Matt and Jag, were going to throw the next HOH, recognizing that people were going to take the shot at him instead, which obviously would have made it more likely for someone on his side to win HOH, someone like a Suri and possibly a Felicia or a Mimi. But at this point, even Felicia and Mimi are no longer on his side. And plus, Matt and Jag have decided not to throw the next HOH, that they are going to go for it. So at this point, really, his best bet is either Suri or maybe Blue winning HOH. But even then, like, Blue hasn't really done him any favors either, even though she probably should be staying with him, but whatever. And plus, while the plan was initially to backdoor Jared so that he couldn't play in the veto, now there's talks about just putting him on the block with Suri, so that even if he does win the veto, he would have to use it on himself, and Suri would go home instead. So either way, like, Jared's in a lot of danger here, and really his only chance of survival is either Suri or Blue winning HOH, which again, when they're going up against Matt and Jag, doesn't seem like the greatest prospect, or him winning the veto. But even if he wins the veto, it seems like Suri would be the backup target instead. So either way, like, Jared's in a lot of danger, like I said. Now, I will say that he played his HOH kind of okay, where I know people said that he probably shouldn't be getting rid of Cameron, but really Cameron was also going to be going for him had he was able to stay in power. And really, like, at this point, like, his best bet is to win out, and he needs to take out someone that's good in comps, and I think Cameron does that. But even so, like, he is in such a dire position, and so much of it is his own fault. So I can't really have him any higher than here, even though he is the HOH. So because of that, he is here at number 10. Now we're moving on to number 9, and we have another massive fall from grace here. And honestly, coming into the week, even with all the stuff that had happened, I wasn't expecting this person to be this low. But I feel like with the way things are now, I kind of have to put Suri here. And the main reason I have Suri here is she is probably one of the more likely people to go home in this double, where I feel like it's probably her or Jag that are going to be the backup target if Jared wins the veto, which again, considering everything I talked about, doesn't seem like the most likely option. And plus, Suri herself seems like she has been giving up a bit. Where earlier in the week, like, there was even talk about her, like, telling Jared that if Cam won the veto and used it, that he should just put her up and send her home before jury. So I feel like she has really suffered a lot from losing Izzy, both from a game position standpoint, but also from a morale standpoint, where you could very clearly tell that she misses Izzy and that she is very much affected by her absence. So I think that's not particularly great. And on top of that, while she has been trying to get back in with some certain people in recent days, people at this point don't really trust her as much, as Blue is leaking all of her conversations. She's making it very clear to people like what she's trying to do, and people are starting to recognize that Suri is a good liar and that she shouldn't be as trusted in the game. So either way, like, Suri is someone that is not only in a lot of danger, but her ability to recover from the damage that's been done to her game is hampered by the fact that Blue is leaking all the stuff that she's doing to the rest of the house. So I think Suri has really fallen from grace here, and I feel like outside of Jared, she's the next most likely target on the board. And I feel like with her losing Jared, I just don't know how much she can really recover from this. Now, again, it's still Suri, like we could still see her like coming around at some point, but this is just such a dire position for her to be in as well. And while it's not as much of her fault compared to Jared, I still feel like with the way that she's been playing, it's just not really being as effective as it was before. So I think it's for all those reasons that I do have to drop Story all the way down here, though it wouldn't surprise me if she ends up surviving this and she could potentially recover. But for now, I do have to leave her here at number 9. Now we're moving on to number 8, and we have a pretty interesting player to talk about here. But here we have Blue. Now, I did consider putting Blue a little bit higher, as I think she's been playing a bit more actively this week, where with Izzy leaving, she's now in a more central position where she's in an interesting spot to where obviously she still has Jared to a degree. Jared has been giving her information that Suri has been doing regarding like Suri getting back in, and we see Blue like doing her Blue thing and leaking it to the rest of the house. And I actually think for once this is somewhat effective, as I feel like part of this is her trying to ensure that people would target Suri over Jared. Mind you, I don't think it's as effective, as I still think like most people will go for Jared first, unless he wants to veto, obviously. But even then, like there was a point during the week where Blue herself probably would have targeted Jared, which I think would have been a massive mistake on her end. And I felt like that would have really weakened like her in the future. So I still feel like her trying to get the target on the Suri is at least something. But I feel like with her potentially losing Jared in the double, I don't think that's particularly great for her. Now, mind you, she still has some other options, like people like Corey and Jag and Matt have talked about working with her and taking her deeper into the game. But at the same time, like I don't really see like Blue improving her odds all that much. I don't think she's really garnered more respect in the house through her gameplay this past week. And I still feel like she's playing largely similarly, where she just can't hold on to information and that she just leaks everything no matter what. So I feel like to a degree, like I don't think Blue has really improved much as a player, though I do recognize that she's in a better position now than she was before. But at the same time, I still don't think she's a likely winner, which is why she's here at number 8. Now moving on to number 7, and we have someone that's sort of similar to Blue in a lot of ways, but I feel like they're just in a better position at this point. But here we have Jag. And Jag is also in a weird spot at this point, where at one point during this week, he could have been a backup target, where we knew early on after Jared went HOH that his initial noms were going to be Corey and Jag. And even beyond that, Jag was going to be the backup target if Cam won the veto, as Jared recognized that Jag was, again, one of the better competitors and someone that could have gotten in the way of him winning out, which Jared at least recognizes is his ideal strategy at this point. But eventually the target does shift to Core in America, as the initial nons with Cam still is the back door. And while Jag could have gone up on the block had the veto been used, that ultimately doesn't go through because he wins the veto. And obviously it doesn't really matter like who he uses it on, as obviously Cam is the backdoor target here. And I feel like moving forward, Jag's sort of in a weird spot. Now I do question the way that he played part of the week, where for a lot of the week he wanted to throw the next HOH, recognizing that most of the house would have gone for Jared, when in reality I feel like him throwing it would have been pretty bad, as Jag needs his side to win this next HOH to avoid like him going up on the block or possibly even losing Matt in the process. I still think Jag is someone that could be a target in this double if things go wrong for him. Now, it doesn't seem as likely he'll be targeted in the future, as again, it does seem like Suri is now the backup target over him. But there was definitely a point in the week where had Jared won the next veto, that Jag could have been the backup target there. And even moving forward, like I still see people taking him out at some point as a way of weakening Matt. So I don't think that's particularly great for him either. And plus, another thing I should mention is that Jared did try to throw Jag under the bus here, where he spread this lie, like saying that Jag was the one that leaked to Felicia, that she didn't have the votes to stay. And we saw Corey and a lot of those other people believe this lie for a bit, where they were calling Jag the worst player ever. And yes, while it does eventually get cleared up, and obviously Corey gets into a massive fight over it, the fact that they even believed it for a bit just goes to show that they still don't respect Jag much as a player. And even now, like I don't think Jag is as cutthroat as I would like him to be. But still, I think he's in a better position now than he was even at the beginning of the week. but it's still enough to have him here at number 7. Now we're moving on to number 6, and we are going to probably one of the biggest jumps of the week, but this is mainly because this person went from being out the door to now being kind of safe in the game. But here we have Felicia, the person that I had towards the bottom of last week's ranking, simply because it looked like she was going home. However, literally less than 24 hours later, the flip happened and she was basically given the votes to stay. Now, with that said, I think one of the biggest knocks to Felicia's game is that she had almost nothing to do with this flip, where it largely came down to the likes of America, Corey, and Cam working together to flip these votes and get these coalitions going in order to get Felicia on her side. Felicia isn't even told about this plan until Thursday morning, where Cam told her about like this whole plan that she doesn't have the numbers, and we saw Felicia just running around the house and getting like people like Sari and Jared to notice why people noticed. And obviously that kickstarted the whole lie with Jared and obviously everything else that fell out. But Felicia herself didn't really do much to get the votes on her side. It was just more so the other side recognizing that Jared had been lying and that they needed to flip the game. And obviously they got together. They get the votes to stay Felicia. And Felicia herself seems to be in an interesting spot at this point where she is arguably one of the safer players in the house. Now, with that said, I don't think she's necessarily a power player. She has been working more alongside Mimi over the past week, and we have seen them like in some game talks, but even then, like you had like the whole alliance that Jag proposed with the likes of Sari, Matt, and Blue that they were left out of. You obviously have a lot of the power being centered around the likes of Corey and America and Jag and Matt. And Felicia and Mimi can be seen as a bit of a duo within that, but I feel like they're probably one of the less powerful duos within that, really outside of their relationship with Sari, where we saw Sari trying to repair their relationship. But even then, like obviously, Jared and Sari are going to be top targets now in the future. And Felicia herself has pretty much turned off Sari at this point. She has pretty much put her foot down saying that she's done with them. And, you know, like, while that's good that she's finally standing up for herself, I don't really know how that's going to translate to Felicia and Mimi navigating through the rest of this game to get themselves into a winning position. And plus, I still feel like while Felicia is still well liked and well respected, I can see the argument for her losing a jury vote at the end at this point. I don't think Felicia has really done much over this past week to improve her odds. And really, if anything, the fact that Felicia herself didn't really have much to do with getting the votes off for last week probably hurts her chances in the long term, as people recognize that it was these other people that got the votes together to save Felicia rather than anything Felicia did herself. So I think that'll probably be a big thing used against her if she gets to the end. And even beyond that, I do question how much agency she truly has within the game. So it's for all those reasons that I do have her here at number 6, though considering where she was last week, consider it a massive improvement. Now moving on to number 5, and we have another person that jumped up from last week, and I actually think this person is kind of building some momentum, though we'll have to see how things end up playing out for them. But here we have Bowie Jane. And Bowie was another interesting figure from this past week. She was included on the plan to take out Izzy, which I think was pretty good. And I think at this point, like she's technically part of the majority alliance. She's one of the safest people within the house. Now, yes, there was some talk this week about putting her on the block, but again, I still feel like she's being largely underestimated here. I don't really see her being targeted anytime soon. And plus, we have seen more people like talking about wanting to work with Bowie. Like we saw a conversation recently with America, how they want to work together. She's been like doing more recently in terms of talking game and gravitating towards people that are in power. Whereas before, she was trying to work the Cerise side, and obviously they kind of pushed her out. But I think now, especially with Izzy out, Izzy being someone that was very much against her, and obviously someone that probably would not have voted for her had she been on the jury, I think that kind of helps out Bowie's game to a degree. And I think with her starting to move around more within the game, she is laying some groundwork to not only give herself some longevity, but I could also say like a case to maybe win if she gets towards the end. Where again, it's still a bit early to know for sure. I mean, I still feel like this is a bit of a good spot to put her at. Though if she continues down this track, I could see her improving quite a bit in the weeks to come. which is crazy considering that I didn't think so at the beginning of the season. I felt like she was probably the least likely to win a jury vote coming into the season. But then again, I also came into this week last week expecting the Suri power structure to hold, and look at where we are now. So I think for all those reasons, I did bump up Bowie to a degree, though we'll have to see what happens in the future. So she's here at number 5. Now we're moving on to number 4, and I feel like these 4 are probably in the best spot in the house right now, mixing that in with their potential win equity, and it's just a matter of ordering them. By number 4, I did decide to go with America, mainly because she is on the block right now, and while I don't think a flip is going to happen this week, unlike what happened last week, I still think America could be in some danger moving forward. Now, obviously, like her and Corey going up on the block together isn't great, especially when it seemed earlier in the week that she was probably more likely to go home compared to Corey had the noms stay the same, though that wasn't really the intention of most of the house, to where even Cam would have used the veto, probably on her, had like he won the veto. So you do have to give her some credit for that. But really, I think when Jag wins the veto, like it really highlights that Corey had the better relationship with him that resulted in Jag using the veto to save Corey over America. And while the actual decision didn't matter too much, I still think it's not great that America didn't have that better relationship compared with Corey. And I think one other thing you had to knock against her is that she did tell Blue about Jag's proposed alliance of them, Corey, and Matt, that Blue ultimately leaked back to Jared, and really had Suri in her side not lost all this power, it could have resulted in America getting some more hot water, but luckily it didn't matter too much. So I think those are things I did hold back from America to a degree, to where she is a bit lower here. Then also, I feel like her and Corey are probably more likely to be targeted at some point in the future. Whereas I feel like Jag and Matt like definitely have more compatibility to where I could see them sticking together a bit longer, and Felicia and Mimi are just naturally more safe there. But I still think America's in a considerably better spot now than she was before, and it's for that reason that I have her here at number 4. Now we're moving on to number 3, and I feel like this person's considerably safer than America, though at the same time, I feel like they haven't really set themselves up as well as I would like. But here we have Mimi. And the reason I have Mimi above America is that, well, she's not on the block right now. Although at the same time, like she and Felicia had been discussed as potential pawns to go up in the double to take out Jared, which isn't great. I also think she was a bit more passive than I would have liked, where we saw this alliance form with Suri, Jared, Matt, and Jag, that I feel like Mimi could have been included upon if she were a bit more active, but again, I feel like her issue just isn't as bad as it was before. I still feel like she's in probably one of the best positions in the house, though at the same time, I do worry that her losing Suri and Jared back to back wouldn't be great for her game. Though I think losing Jared would be obviously pretty good, as it will allow her to get all in on Suri, as I feel like part of Mimi's position is contingent upon her being able to ride the middle, and while she has Felicia, I feel like having Suri still there could be a potential number for her in the future, for her to potentially get back in the numbers. So I do question that to a degree. Though again, if the double goes according to plan, she would be able to lose Jared, but still be able to have this middle position to where she could potentially navigate in the future. So I think Mimi is still in a very solid position. Plus, she has a lot more respect to win the game when she gets to the end compared to Felicia, which is why I do have her above her. Though at the same time, I feel like she hasn't played this week the most actively, and while I feel like she didn't need to, I feel like it could definitely highlight some issues that she has later on in her game. But for now, I feel like she's in a good enough spot to be here number 3. Now moving on to number 2, and I did question this placement to a degree, though I feel like based on the way they've been playing, I feel like this could work out for them. But here we have Corey, and I feel like Corey alongside America deserve a lot of the credit for this flip happening. I would probably give America a little more credit simply because she was the one to get Cam to realize that maybe he didn't actually know everything after all. But I feel like Corey did a lot of the work as well to get some people on their side to take this shot against Izzy. Now, I do have to fault him to a degree for getting to the argument with Jared, where even though Corey comes out of it looking better than Jared, where Jared just straight up bombs it and he very blatantly looks like the liar in the situation, I feel like the fact that Corey got into that argument to begin with isn't great, as it forced him to reveal some information while allowing other people to lay back, which I don't think is particularly great. Now, I think he's done good work since then in terms of obviously building this alliance with Jag and Matt. You obviously have Jag using the veto on him, which I think speaks to his relationship with Jag. Though at the same time, like had the noms stay the same, like there could have been some movement to take him out. So I feel like that was a bit of a question with his placement. And plus, moving forward, while he seems to be safer than the likes of Jag, I could still see him being like a juicy target later on in the game that could allow him to be taken out. So I think those are all things that are holding me back. Where even though I feel like he's probably one of the biggest jury threats on the board, it's just a question of whether he can truly navigate his way all the way to the end. Which, considering like the fact that he's already kind of out in front, plus the fact that he's not as strong in competitions, I did decide to bump him down a bit. Though I still find myself mostly impressed with this game, and because of that, he is here at number 2. And now, at number 1, the person that I believe is the most likely to win Big Brother 25 right now is Matt. And I've been pretty impressed with Matt's game over the past week. Now, I will say that probably the biggest knock to his game for this week is the fact that he did at one point consider throwing the HOH alongside Jag. And I think in the future, I think with Jag being a bigger target, I do worry a bit that that could harm his position to a degree. Though at the same time, I feel like similar to Mimi, I feel like he still has a somewhat better relationship with the Cerise side compared to Corey in America, to where I could see like him getting in good with Cerise if she stays in the game long term. And plus, compared to Corey, I feel like he is significantly better in competitions, to where even if he becomes a bigger target, I could see him like winning out from this point. And plus, compared to Mimi, I feel like he's played a bit more actively in terms of getting to these alliances, to where he's probably in a better spot, and I find his gameplay from this week more impressive than Mimi. Again, like this is still like a very turbulent period in the game, but I feel like with the way things stand, I feel like Matt is just naturally the person that I feel the most confident in to win out from this point, and because of that, I do have him here at number 1. And there we go, that will do it for this week's video. If you like this content, be sure to like and subscribe, really helps out with the channel. Now I'll be back again next week to update the Power Rankings again, so stay tuned for that. I'll be live streaming the double eviction on Thursday night, so you can check me out there. It'll be a lot of fun, like a lot of crazy stuff there. You also have Survivor 45 coming on the horizon, and Amazing Race 35 too, so you can expect coverage of those shows as well once that comes out. I also have a Patreon, and if you want to consider supporting the channel, you can click the link in the description. And if you haven't already, be sure to join the Discord server, which you can join by clicking the link in the description. There's so much coming your way, but for now, that is the video. See ya.